Good morning. Take a seat.
I will.
You got plenty to pick from.
Okay.
Happy Sabbath, everyone. If you're joining us online, we're just getting online. And we've got a new arrangement here. We're broadcasting, streaming from Eden Point Lifestyle this week. And in hopes that the many flyers that we printed, a few of which actually got handed out because we kept making changes to the flyer. I don't know, somebody might show up yet, but we got a nice local crowd here. We were hoping that,
and like Chris said, he was telling me a story on the way in.
Yes.
That light bearers or whatever. Who was it that you said?
Well, I'm not sure where.
It was some group that was starting up.
Yeah.
It was a new plant, I guess, and nobody showed up, and so like two people.
Two people. That's all it takes.
Yeah, and weeks and weeks and weeks went by until finally somebody started showing up.
Yeah, well, we just keep up. We'll keep at it.
Yeah.
We're going to do something new this time. We've been doing word studies, and we're going to do some more word studies later on. But we were hoping that we could. Actually, we had requests from people. They wanted to know about prophecy, and they came last week, and we had a wonderful time. And so we were going to expand on that, and they said they had a lot of friends that were going to come, and they were going to invite them, and so we decided we better get a little larger venue, and we got a lot of chairs and tables here, and it's a nice place.
So be careful.
Huh?
I said be careful what you say.
So we're going to continue with that theme, and hopefully, we record all of this. It'll be available. Before we get started, let's, of course, pray for our Father's blessing. Father, we thank you for this lovely Sabbath day. The sun is shining, it's clear skies. Groundhog certainly will see his shadow today. And we thank you for giving us this place, this time, and your word. And open our hearts and our minds to understand your word as we look at prophecy today and understand where we're at today and this end time. The appointed time is for the time of the end. May we hear your voice speaking, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, for those who didn't see the presentation last time, we're going to very quickly go through a little synopsis of what we laid out. And we had just the one board, and it was a little cramping. I had to erase it and do some more stuff. And so we got two boards. Maybe that'll help give us a little more room to show these things. I'm going to put that long time scale right along the top here. Boy, this one's a little dry. I wonder if I should use it. Now there's time, and remember we had Adam down here. He's year 0 or 1 or something. Starting time. He was the first patriarch, and then we had, remember we had Noah. He was the. I can't choose that. This is about. Year 1000. I'm going to do in thousands across here. Can you see that on there? Out of the way. And then we had, further over here, year 2000 we have Abraham.
Do you need a towel?
I can't erase this one. This is a one-time. It's for all eternity.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have about 3,000. This is from creation. And then 4,000. You get this on this board here. And the flood, you remember the flood? Put that right in here. That was in Noah's 600th year. You can see that, which makes the flood at year 1,656 to be exact. If you count up all the genealogies, 130 years for Adam until Seth was, and then 165 years for Enosh and his son, and you add all these dates up, and it comes to 1656 at the time of the flood. Which means, if it's 600 years, he was born back here at about 1056, right? About one, so in ballpark, it's about year 1000. Abraham's about 2000, 1980, somewhere around in it's close to 2000. Now you remember in the genealogies, in Matthew, genealogy, the first chapter of Matthew, he makes a comparison. This is about 1,000 years now before Christ. This is where the BC AD divide. And we're going to do that right there where the board divides. And then, because we want to expand down there. And this is when Jesus was born, which is, as we mentioned, probably about 4 BC. 1,000 years before that is David. So you have all these important people. Noah, Abraham, David, pretty much on the 1,000-year boundaries in history in the Old Testament. And so then we have, we call Messiah, Mashiach, Jesus, Christ, all kinds of different names. And so about 1,000 years before that, David. 1,000 years before him, Abraham. And going on, of course, you get 1000 AD. Let's put that. We want to end up down here somewhere about 2000, right? That's sort of where we're at in our ballpark. We'll put 1000 about here, because we're going to need a lot more detail down on this end of the board. There is important prophetic segments of Scripture that will be important on these two sides. We're going to look at Daniel over here, and we're going to look at Revelation on this side. So, the important thing in the news. Did you see the news today? About 2 o'clock this morning, in Tehran, Iran, isn't that neat? Tehran, Iran. They had a parade celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Islamic revolution. You remember 1979? And Ayatollah Khomeini. And the captives were, in the embassy. Well, they're celebrating all that today. Isn't that interesting? February 2, Groundhog Day. Here we go around, and we're going around again. History repeats itself. And 40 years, that's an important time, isn't it? 40 years. Is it significant? Maybe. And you got to keep watching. Oh, there's a lot of intensity building about Iran lately. The vice president of Iran, who is also the atomic energy director, Ali Akbar Salehi, announced that because President Trump has punished them once again by reinstituting the embargoes and the trade sanctions, they are going to increase their enriched uranium output, yellow cake, to 300 tons a year. So there. And with the hopes and intention and ambition of wiping Israel off the map. Remember Ahmadinejad, whatever his name was back there. He threatened to do that. Well, they're still at it.
Hello.
And you remember, we've already been over in that part of the world doing a lot of shock and awe, is what George W. Bush said. Remember the war took out Saddam Hussein. Well, there's going to be another war because we're not through. The ram has two horns, you know. Oh, I got to get into Daniel. Okay, so why are we studying prophecy? You know, a lot of times the question is when. When you're talking about prophecy, everybody wants to know when or what does this mean. Have you ever asked the question, why do we have prophecy? Why does God give us prophecy? Well, there's a battle going on. There's battles in this world, and there's battles in the Bible, and there's battles in spiritual places. Let's turn to Ephesians chapter 6, the last chapter of Ephesians. Gepic. Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians. Those little four little books go right together there, and I remember them in that order by saying Gepic. Ephesians 6, the last chapter of Ephesians, verse 12. So I'm going to put this, put these texts over here, maybe on this side where you can see it a little better. Ephesians 6, 12. Because we're going to look at a lot of 12s here. Okay, Ephesians 6:12. We wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of darkness. Who's that? Satan and his angels. Yeah, of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. How high?
Pretty high.
Heaven, maybe. Okay. So you put on the whole armor of God. That's the rest of it. Well, where are these? You go back to the Old Testament here. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12. There's the 12 in that one. Isaiah 14, verse 12. Let me put that text in here. Isaiah 14, verse 12. Okay, we got a lot of 12s coming up. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, light bearer, day star, my margin says. He thinks he's the sun.
Yeah.
Isn't that the day star? That's the star we can see in the day, because it's so bright it wipes everything else out. You can't see all the other stars. How art thou fallen, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations? How did he weaken the nations? And destroying them. He's the destroyer. Remember, in Revelation 9, 9:11, by the way.
Yeah, exactly.
He's the destroyer. Reading on, verse 13. He's got ambitions. This guy, he's going to climb the corporate ladder. He's on his way up to the top. He says, I have said in my heart, he's thinking to himself, I will ascend into heaven, and I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. Where's the mount of the congregation, by the way?
Heaven.
What mountain is that? Mount
Zion.
Zion. Yes, in the sides of the north. Where's the sides of the north in the sanctuary? What's in the north of the sanctuary?
The table of showbread.
Showbread, that's right. And that's the throne. Remember, it's the only piece of furniture in the whole temple, in the tabernacle, the sanctuary, that has two crowns around it. Now, the altar of incense has a crown around it, and the Ark of the Covenant has a crown around it, and the altar out in the courtyard doesn't have a crown, but it has four horns. But the table of showbread has two crowns and two stacks of bread. And yeah, it's the throne. It's on the north side, sides of the north. I will, I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. What are the clouds made? You know, Jesus is going to come in the clouds of heaven. What are those clouds made out of?
The angels.
Angels. A cloud of angels. Oh, the cloud of angels. What's that song go?
Well, see the Lord coming.
See the Lord coming. And the cloud of
It's
angels.
in there somewhere.
I will be like the Most High. He's got his sights on the Father himself. He's going to replace them all, and he's going to be top dog. At least he thinks. Now, that's not what it said back here in verse 12. You're going to be cut down to the ground. And if you read on, it tells you what's going to happen. Verse 15. Yet you shall be brought down to hell. Sheol is the Hebrew word there. The grave. To the sides of the pit. Why do they call it the pit? It's where you throw carcasses. Dead garbage and refuse.
Wow.
They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man? Lucifer is going to be reduced to just a human being. He thinks he's so much better. Is this the man that made the earth to tremble and did shake the nations? Well, he did. And he is. He's doing it now. Why? Because he knows he's got a little time left. He has come down with great wrath, it says in Revelation 12, verse, what? It's on the second column, right near the top there. He has come down. He knows he has a little time left. Verse 12. Ha! 12. Another 12. Woe to the heavens, the earth, and sea. The devil has come down having great wrath because he knows he has but a short time. Ooh, man, he's in a panic. And people do crazy things when they're in panic mode, don't they? That has made the world a wilderness. He's destroyed everything and destroyed the cities thereof, and can't even open the house of his prisoners. Who's his prisoners?
Us. The angels of hell.
Everybody's destroyed, taken, killed. And he can't raise them back to life. He's not the creator.
Nope.
No, he's just the destroyer. Anyway, okay, so enough about that. Ezekiel 28. Now this goes on to the rest of the story, a little more detail about his background here. Now why do you remember 28? Because 14 is 28, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Ezekiel, E-Z-E, 28, 12. Another 12. 6 and 6 is 12. We start out with 6, 12, 12, 12. Okay. Ezekiel 28, 12. Now this is the second part. Ezekiel 28 is divided into two halves. The first part is on the prince of Tyre, and beginning with verse 12 is on the king of Tyre. Why is there prince of Tyre and the king of Tyre? Same reason in Revelation, when you get to chapter 12, it begins with the dragon and ends up with the beast. Who's behind the beast?
Satan.
The dragon. Who's behind the prince of Tyre?
Satan.
The king of Tyre. Well, that's the prince of Tyre is the one that's this human that's in charge. He's the ruler there in the city of Tyre, Tyre and Sidon, on the coast. Today you call it Lebanon. It's kind of Lebanon area. Verse 12 talks about the king of Tyre. Okay, this is what's going on in the background. You don't see this, but this is the power behind that's in control. And say to him, you sealed up the sun, full of wisdom, perfect in your beauty. You have been in Eden, the garden of God. Well, here we are. We're in Eden today, aren't we? We're Eden Point. We're pointing to Eden. And he had all these stones. Listen, look at all the different stones were on there. How many you got? Count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Is that significant? And one of them is Jasper. Here we are in the city of Jasper. And he had 10 stones. You got 10 horns.
Oh.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a coalition. Every time you have a 10, it's the powers that are arrayed against God's people. Well, boy, he had that way back. And it says, in the day that he was created, you are the anointed cherub that covers. Covers what?
The throne.
Yes. Remember the Ark of the Covenant. Now we're going to go back to the temple and the sanctuary there again. We're talking about the table of showbread. That's the one with the 2 crowns. In the most holy place, there's only one piece of furniture. What is it?
The ark.
Ark of the Covenant. And what does it have?
The law. I think
The law.
Inside, what does it have outside? 2
Oh,
cherubim.
Yep.
Or 2 cherubs, we'd say. In Hebrew, cherubim. That's plural. King James says cherubims. Which is redundant. You got cherubim, it's a plural, and you put an S on it. And there's 2. How many were on there? Whoops. Give you the answer and then ask the question. There's 2 covering cherubs.
Yeah.
And why is it covering? Because you remember, one wing from each of them reached out over the mercy seat, and the wing on the other side would reach out and touch in the middle there, and they're covering what in the space in between there, above the mercy seat and between the cherub, was the Shekinah glory, the visible presence of God.
The Father.
So we have 2 on there. Oh, welcome.
Well, thank you. I would have loved to be here early.
Well, it's lovely to have you here. So we got 2 cherubim. Here he is. It says the anointed cherub that covered it. You were in the holy mountain of God. You walked up and down the midst of the stones of fire. You remember, our God is a what? Consuming fire. Consumes what?
Evil.
Sin. So there's no sin there where God is. Can't be. Is he going to consume it? And this king of Tyre, who is this?
The king.
He's one of the anointed, he's the anointed cherub that covers.
He's Satan.
Well, he became Satan.
He became Satan.
And it's going to talk about that
Yes.
here. You were perfect. Now, he started out, it says here, verse 15, you were perfect in the way from the day that you were created until something happened. Something
Sin and
changed.
iniquity were found
Until
in
iniquity was found in thee. And by the multitude of thy merchandise or possessions. And he thought he had it all. He was a bag of chips and all that. Well, that's an old expression. Anyway, and he had filled the merchandise with violence, and you have sinned. How did sin arise? Well, you can't answer that, can you?
No, it's a mystery.
If you could explain it, you would excuse it.
That's right.
It's cast out, it's profane out of the mountain of God. I will destroy you, O covering cherub, from the midst of the stones of fire. Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty and corrupted your wisdom. You have defiled your sanctuaries, the multitude of iniquities by the iniquity of your traffic. Therefore will I bring forth a fire from the midst of thee. What is that fire?
Consumes from within.
It's his sin.
It's God's glory.
Oh, wow. It's God's glory.
Yes, remember Mount Sinai?
Yes.
When God was on the top of the mountain, it says in Habakkuk chapter 3 that the Lord came down upon on the mountain. In Exodus chapter 19, it says the whole mountain was on fire and with a smoke. You know, because, yeah, lightning and thunder and a trumpet waxing louder and louder. His presence is fire. He's described as light. Now that's a pretty bright light. Today we know about laser light, and you can have industrial lasers that can cut through steel that thick. You know.
It'll blind you.
And yeah, and even the little ones can blind you. So don't look into a laser light. Anyway, this fire is wonderful fire when it's used properly in the right environment. But if you've got sin, it's going to eradicate it. Well, he's got sin now. It says, till sin was found in me. And a fire is going to come out of him because he's exposed to the fire of God. And when God exposes himself in that way, reveals his glory, Isaiah 40 verse 5, and the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. Well, that's going to happen. At the end of the millennium, the end of the 1,000 years, God will reveal his glory. No burning bush anymore. No veil in the most holy place. Unveiled. What do we say? There's a term. You know the term?
Unwired, no.
Not unwired. Anyway.
Gary,
There's a. Yeah.
it says we all shall see it, but we don't see the consuming fire for the evil, do we? You know what I mean? We're in Him.
We're groping in the dark right now. We can't see in our state that we're in. We can't see.
He shields it. Unshielded.
We're being shielded right now.
Yeah.
Even, I mean, but after we go to heaven, isn't that when that happens?
Yes, and then we will dwell in everlasting burnings and devouring fire, it says, Isaiah 33, verse 14.
Why we're here.
For when we're in God's presence, when God
Oh,
reveals himself.
I see, I see, yes.
We can,
But he will have purified us. Malachi 3, verse 3, he shall purify the sons of Levi and the daughters of Levi.
Well, when the 144,000 come,
That's well, we have to be purified now so that when he appears, we shall see him as he is. We shall be like him. 1 John 3, verse
We won't
3.
be in these sin, curse, fallen state bodies.
No, right.
We'll be in a
Yes.
glorified body.
oh, I thought that's when he came. That's when that happened. But
Okay. Anyway, okay, so
okay.
So there's a war going on. We're answering the question of why prophecy, and then we're going to get into prophecy. So there's a war. Revelation. Let's get to Revelation here now. Revelation 12. I'm going to put the 12 over there. Verse 7. There was war in heaven, right? And Michael and his angels fought with the dragon and his angels, and they left their first estate. Oh, that's Jude. Put this one over here too. Jude 6. Only one chapter, so just verse 6. Jude 6. The angels which which kept not their first estate, but left their habitation. They left.
On their own accord.
Cast by the tail.
Well, at the cross they were cast out.
Oh, cast down.
They were cast out.
Oh, you mean
That's Revelation 12, verse 9.
with the cross? I'm sorry to interrupt everybody, but at the cross, was he no longer permitted to go to other planets?
No,
Okay.
no.
He was bound.
That's it. That's it. They're done. The last link of sympathy was gone. You're going to kill the Son of God. You have no more sympathy with us. So all the rest of the world is the angelic host. But what's the rest of this time? What's that for? 2,000 years. So that we on this planet can see the light and recognize that he really is the destroyer.
And the other
And
fallen
that
worlds too.
we have no sympathy for him.
And the
either.
angels too, they see it more and more
Yes.
too.
And everybody, eventually, at the end down here, everyone makes their choice. You're for God. I love him. The gift that he gave in making eternal life available for us. I want to be with him.
Amen.
I cast my vote with him. I want to be on his side. Or, no, the light's too bright. I can't stand it. I like the way I live. I'm not going to change. Okay, it's your choice. All right, let's get into some prophecy. In view of current events, 40th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution, 1979, 2019, 40 years later. My, how time flies when you're having fun. It seems like yesterday, yeah. Let's turn to Daniel. Oh, here's another real brief summary of what we did last time. Remember Daniel, it's going to be, we're going to have to expand this down in here. Okay, we had let's go back to Moses. Moses is kind of right in here. He's in between Abraham and David. About half. This is about 15. This is 1000. This is 1000 BC, right? It's about 1500 BC. So it's about halfway between that. And this is 2000 BC and what's the abbreviation for since creation?
SC.
Let's see. Okay, since creation. That's the same number. So it's 2,000 years from Adam and 2,000 years before Christ. So that's right about there. Moses. How long did Moses live? 120 years. 1, 2, 0. And his life was divided up, remember, into 3 components. Huh?
40, 40, 40.
Yeah.
40, 40, 40. Ooh, we're talking about 40 today. 40 years, yeah.
Perfect number.
So he had 40 years in Egypt, born and spent the first part of his life in a little basket of bulrushes until Pharaoh's daughter came and rescued him and took him off to the Pharaoh's court. 40 years in the court of Egypt, 40 years in Midian,
Tending sheep.
learning how to take care of sheep, and then 40 years in the wilderness taking care of sheeple sheep. Sheeple.
Sheeples.
Okay, David. David is the middle, he's the star of David, of the United Kingdom of Israel. Remember? You had Saul, David, and Solomon. So we got SDS. Saul reigned how many years?
40 years.
40 years. How many years did David reign?
40 years.
40 years. How many years did Solomon reign?
40 years.
Ooh, you see a pattern
40,
there?
40, 40.
40, 40, 40. You got 40, 40 vision here. Okay, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40, 40. And here it is, 40 years from the Islamic Republic. Now, what happened here? The kingdom became divided. Instead of 12 tribes, you had what?
1
10
and
and 12. 10 and 2.
10 and 2.
10 and 2.
oh, 10 and 2.
10 went north
Jeroboam.
with Jeroboam, that's right, and the other 2, Judah and Benjamin, so the southern kingdom. They stayed down there. Now, you remember, you see these numbers? What happened back here? We had a 10 and 2 event back here. Yeah.
Oh,
What was it?
spies.
When they went to go into the promised land, they said, let's send spies.
Yeah.
How many spies did they send?
Oh, 10.
1 from each tribe. 12 spies. They came back. How many wanted to go in?
2.
How many said,
10.
10.
Wow.
So we had a division, similar division. And that alliance kind of persisted on. So how wide is the road that leads to destruction?
Wide.
How many go on it?
Few.
Well,
Lots.
No, a lot.
Oh, a lot.
How
narrow
narrow is
is
the road that leads to
Narrow is the
everlasting
road in the
life.
gate.
Few there be that find it. Okay, so this has always been the case, hasn't it? Now, when they divided, eventually the 2 kingdoms, after 390 years for the northern kingdom and 430 years for the southern kingdom, went into captivity. Both of them ended up going into captivity because they served other gods, and God could not defend them against their enemies. And eventually, they had to be taken into captivity. So right here, this approximately right in this area here, we're going to expand this out, and we're going to they go. Where do they go into? Southern kingdom here. These went to Assyria, never to be heard of again. The lost tribes of Israel. Okay, to these two,
Babylon.
they went to Babylon. Okay, so we're going to Babylon. Babylon. And how long were they there?
70 years
70 years.
because of the land Sabbath.
Yes.
Jeremiah.
They didn't, and you read about this in Jeremiah chapter 34. Jeremiah 34 tells the sad story. They had one last chance to keep a land Sabbath and let the slaves go free. At least one, do it once. Just do it once for me, and I'll protect you against these Babylonians that are they're gonna destroy the city. They're gonna burn down the temple. They're gonna haul you all off as slaves into Babylon, and it's all can be prevented if you. Anyway, we went through this whole story. So they were there for 70 years, and during this time, Daniel and Ezekiel have visions and they have prophecies, and that's what we want to look at. Some of this shortly here today, this morning. Near the end of this period of time here, close to the end, and there's something else going to come on. Daniel has a prophecy in Daniel 7. We're going to look at Daniel chapter 7 and chapter 8. So if you get your Bibles, let's look at that real quick. Daniel's, now we had Daniel chapter 2 early on. Remember when they first got there, King Nebuchadnezzar has a dream right off the bat. Daniel has just gotten there, and oh boy, now we got somebody God can work through. So he's going to reach out to Nebuchadnezzar, gives him a dream, and he's terrified because he sees this metal man. Gets pulverized by a great big old stone, grinds it up into powder, and blows it away. I didn't know what that means. It doesn't sound good. It ends in destruction. That doesn't sound good. So he puts the word out, and you know the whole story. Well, there's a sequence that's established in Daniel chapter 2. We can do that real quick. But we got Babylon, the head of gold. Remember, he tells him, he explains who it is. You, O king, are that head of gold. So Babylon is gold. Gold. And then what's next? There's another silver. Bronze or brass. I'll just say brass, short.
Iron.
And iron. Okay, and then plus clay.
And boy, is the clay coming forth, isn't it? Clay in the iron.
Notice that these get this is very expensive. That's pretty cheap, especially in Georgia clay. Gold, silver. What would you rather have, gold or silver? Okay.
Gold.
Brass.
Nope.
I'd rather have silver. Brass or iron? Brass. Iron, clay. Okay, so you got a decreasing value, but how hard is this?
Soft.
Pretty soft. How
Right.
about that?
A little bit harder.
A little harder, but you can still bang it around and make. We saw silver coins that were. Where did they do that? They made napkin holders out of them.
Well, they did that in Africa.
It was in Africa, wasn't it? Yeah, we got these. They took the silver coins, beat them out, and made wire out of the coin, and then they shaped the wire and made all these filigree things, and it was really neat.
Wow.
Anyway, you can do that with silver. Brass, a little harder. That's pretty hard.
Crashes
Kinda brittle
everything.
too, and crack and yeah. Anyway, so the value goes down, but the hardness goes up. Okay. And so we got Babylon, and these are not identified. It just says the next kingdom. There's another kingdom coming after you. Well, Nebuchadnezzar didn't like that. So he wanted to make a whole image out of gold, the whole thing. He wanted to be the whole enchilada. That's Daniel chapter 3. And so you have the fiery furnace. But you come down, we're going to go through this sequence again, but now in Daniel chapter 7, you got different images. This time it's beasties, animals. And what's the first one?
Lion.
Lion. And then you got what?
Leopard?
No,
Oh, wait.
lion has eagle's wings.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Lion has eagle's
A
wings.
bear.
Bear.
Bear, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Then
And
And
then
then a leopard, leopard.
And a ram.
Then a horrible beast.
Well, that's coming up.
Oh, yeah.
And then
yeah.
I don't know what to call it. Just
I
call
don't
it
either.
a dragon.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting that that actually is appears associated with this is going to be Rome. You know, this is Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and Rome, right? We all know that.
Yeah, well, it says that.
And it says that when you come to chapter 7, it explains it.
Yeah.
He's told this is Medo-Persia. He's told this is Greece. This one is not identified. Rome is not mentioned. The name Rome is given. But we know that's what it is because in the sequence of history, that's next. Okay, chapter 8, though, we want to get, I wanted to point out this bear, but look at it here.
On one side.
Yes, he has
Yeah,
one
3
side
bones in his
higher.
teeth.
Like Medo-Persia.
He's got 3 ribs in his teeth, and
Yeah.
one side is up higher, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's 2, he's got 2 sides, one's higher. Okay, there's a
But the 3 ribs.
3 ribs.
What
Caroline.
is that referring to Rome or what is
No,
it?
no, these are provinces that they
Conquered.
conquered and took in. Lydia.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to remember what the 3 were.
I see.
No, anyway, when you come down, this is 2. This is 7. Now 8. When we get down to chapter 8, it skips Babylon because it's gone. When you get to chapter 8, we're now in the Medo-Persia era. Daniel, remember, he stayed across after Babylon was conquered. He still stayed on. He was with Darius and Cyrus, both of them. And so in chapter 8, we see different animals. Let's look at this. He's verse 3. He lifts up his eyes. He's at the palace in Shushan, where the rivers Elah and the province of Elam, where the river Ulai flows into the Persian Gulf. It's even today, you know, that is Basra, and where the rivers, the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates, and then it empties into the Persian Gulf. That's where he was. He was down in the southern part there. And he sees this ram with 2 horns. Ooh, a ram with 2 horns. Okay, so in chapter 8, it's a ram. Here's a bear, one side higher. Here's a ram, and what about the horns? One of the horns is higher than the other. So you got 2 horns, 2 sides, one shoulder's higher. This one says the higher one came up last. So why do we call this Medo? You ever heard of Medo? What's Medo?
Persia.
Persia. I've heard of Persia. What's Persia
Iran.
today?
Iraq. Is it Iraq?
Iran.
Oh,
Yes.
You ever heard of the Shah of Iran?
yes, sir.
Was he Persian?
Yes, he
Is
is.
the Pope Catholic? Yeah.
yeah.
Persian. What was his name? Shah. Ravli? Pa? No, Pa. I can't remember his name.
Shaw.
Yeah, Shah of Iran.
The one that is dead now, right?
Oh yeah, he died of
Cancer.
gallbladder cancer.
Oh.
They said liver cancer. Well, it spread to his liver, but it started as gallbladder cancer. Anyway, that's a whole story about that. There's 2. And the one that we know about is the one that came up last. So 2 horns, where this was in the west, this is in the east. So what we would recognize, Babylon is really what we would say Iraq today.
Oh, yeah.
But this came from the western part of it, and so it's part of the same thing. Same territory. And what else do we have? Verse 5.
Goat.
A goat. A he-goat. And he's coming from the west. So that means that this ram is in where?
East.
East. This is east. Persia's east. And this ram, the goat, is coming from the west. And he's going so fast, he is speeding, he's flying. He's not even touching the ground. He's got a great horn, notable horn between his eyes. So he's a unicorn goat.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to the ram that had the two horns and ran into him with the fury of his power and moved with choler, anger. Boy, he's a mad ram, a mad goat, a mad goat. And he smites the goat, breaks his two horns. Nobody can help him at all. He casts to the ground, he stomps him with his feet, and nobody can deliver him. And he waxes great. What in the world's going on here? In history, who conquered Persia?
Greece.
The leopard. Only here, it's a goat. And we know it today as Greece. Well, back then, who was the notable king of Greece that did all the conquering?
Alexander.
Alexander, yeah. Alexander.
He's actually Macedonian.
Yeah, his father, Philip of Macedon, and his father, the one who founded Macedonia, let me read his name, Charamus, the first king of Macedon. The story is, the legend was, he found this place because he was chasing some goats that got loose. Goats. And he went over this place and he says, hey, this is nice territory. I think I'll make this my capital. And he called the place that the town is known today as Edessa, but his name for it was Agi, which means goat in Greek.
Oh, I thought it was Aggie. Okay, Aggie.
Or Agi.
Is that like the Aegean Sea?
But we say Aegean Sea, and that's what the Aegean Sea, or the waters around Greece and the Mediterranean is called the Aegean Sea. It's the Goat Sea.
Oh, when you go buy goat milk, it says G. G-H-E.
Uh-huh.
So it's the goat
It's
sea.
all related.
GNC.
Ghee.
G.
Well, the Indians will call that, because when you have a Ramadan and you have all that hot food at night, you have to have ghee to cool it off. Anyway, it's all traces back to this history here. So the goat, what happens to the goat? Oh, we got to wrap this up here. His horn breaks. This notable horn out there. What happened to Alexander the Great?
He died.
Guys,
He died in his 30s.
Young man.
A drinking bout. He overdid it there. And
Yeah.
got malaria and died. You have any children?
Nope.
Yes. Or no,
Well, he wasn't
I
married.
thought he did.
No, he had three, or
four generals.
He's got four generals.
Four generals.
Oh,
That's
four
why it
generals, that's right.
says that
Four wings.
in
That's
the interpretation here, let's go over to verse 20. The ram which you saw is kings of Media and Persia. Verse 21. The goat is the king of Greece. Great horn between his eyes is the first king. That's Alexander. And that being broken, whereas four stood up
His fourth
for it,
general.
4 kingdoms shall stand out of his kingdom, but not in his power. So it didn't come from his offspring. And the 4 generals that we know their names is Cassander, Lysimachus, Seleucus, and Ptolemy.
Well, could it have also meant that they just weren't as strong as he was?
Probably
I
meant
mean,
that
they
too.
didn't have the same drive, perhaps?
Perhaps,
Weren't as powerful.
but it wasn't. They weren't his descendants. And
And the kingdoms divided.
divided into 4.
Mm-hmm.
So this split up. Now, you remember, let's go back to 7 here. Remember this leopard? What was distinctive about the leopard?
Swiftness?
Yeah, why?
And 4 wings.
Because it conquered quickly.
This one had 2 wings, and this one had 4 wings.
conquered the world
and
very
known world.
quickly.
4 horns, 4 wings, very fast. And Alexander did. He conquered the whole world in 12 years. 12 years.
Isn't it saying then also that goat moved across the earth without even touching it? Or
Yes, yeah, we just read that. He didn't touch the ground. Okay, now let's real quick summarize what's happening today and what has happened in recent years. Are we still dealing with Iran and Iraq?
Yes, we are.
Oh man, what goes around comes around, doesn't it? Have we've seen some shock and awe, as W called it, in
Yeah.
Iraq. Have we seen anything in Iran yet?
Yes. Yes, we have, because they are warring up against the United States right now.
Oh yeah, they are. But have we attacked?
No.
No. Did we attack Iraq? The Iraq attack?
Weapons of mass.
Yeah. Well, I suppose that was the reason. The Bible prophecy says that this goat, who's the goat today? That's going to come across the land, not touching the ground. What was the war in Iraq? How was it fought?
By air. By,
Cruise missiles,
Yeah.
Fire came down from heaven.
laser guided missiles out of jets, fighter jets, bombers. It was an air war.
So who's the goat?
So
A lamb like beast rose up.
great.
Who brought all the world together against
we did.
Iraq?
We did.
A coalition. We call it a coalition, right? Well, we had Great Britain, we had Germany, we had France, we had South America, Australia, South Korean,
What was it?
Bosnian soldier. I mean, we had people from a lot of countries were represented.
So it was United
When
States.
huh?
United
Or was
States.
it the
Is
UN?
that the goat?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's great.
This is about to
Waxed
change.
great, didn't it? Waxed great. And this is still to be dealt with. So if we see something happen there, you know we're right at the very end. Because what's going to happen next? Well, this is going to break. This breaks up. There's 4 things that are going to take over.
Of the goat?
Yeah, and then there's a little horn comes out of there that's going to. Yeah.
That's the papacy.
Now, when we get into Revelation, you'll see how that little horn now becomes the beast, Revelation 13, works and is supported by this second beast that comes out of the land, who enforces everybody to worship. Yeah, it's an image of that beast, operates the same way, has the same mindset, and same tactics, and will enforce everybody. There's going to be laws passed.
Antichrist with her false prophet.
Yes. Yeah. So you have a threefold union. So the dragon, the beast, and the false prophet. So who's the dragon?
Lucifer.
He's Satan. He's the one. He's the king of Tyre. One behind,
The United
pulling all the
States.
strings, calling all the shots. And then you have the beast.
Papacy,
And you have the false prophet.
America.
Protestantism.
So you have
apostate.
those two beasts in Revelation 13. One comes out of the sea, one comes out of the land. Sea beast and the land beast. Where's the sea? Remember, Revelation 17 tells you the water
Waters
represents
and
peoples,
people.
multitudes, and languages, and nations. So
That would have been Europe.
where was that? Where was all the people?
Over to Europe and all that.
Yeah. And then in Revelation 12, it says that the dragon opens its mouth and a flood of water comes out to try to drown the woman. Who's the woman?
The
The
church.
church, the true church, the remnant.
Who went to?
But the earth opens its mouth and swallows up the water. What's that?
Lack of water.
Yeah, where was there no people
In the
New world.
US.
at the time of the end? What's the time of the end? Well, you have to study the 3.5 times, and that's this part over here. So later on this afternoon, we'll have part 2, and we'll fill out this board. And we'll talk about the time of the end of time, and what's going to transpire at the very end. A lot of this stuff's repeating at the end again. So we will finish that up.
Gary, now when the Sunday law passes, if we're alive, we'll still be required to go to church on Sunday, but our Sabbaths we will keep by going to visit the sickly and the. Is that right?
You can do
Well,
that.
we're not-
We'll do that every day.
We're not required to go to church. We're just
Oh.
we're required not to work.
Work, yeah.
Oh,
I believe when those Sunday laws become actually enforced, they're going to also try to force God's people from worshiping on God's holy day. Not only are you going to be required to worship a certain way at a certain time, that's also in his Daniel and Revelation prophecies with Meshach, Abednego, the three Hebrews, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Well, it would be the lion's den in Daniel chapter 6, where you couldn't worship anybody but the king. So there's a restriction there.
but how could they stop us if we're worshiping in our homes in silence?
Well, we'll wait and see.
Antiochus.
Okay,
Ears have walls.
let's
Walls have ears.
let's
oh yeah, because
close.
the bird on the wire will tell
We're,
them.
we're gonna close and resume.
Oh,
Brother Houston's got a presentation coming up, so stay tuned. Don't leave, and we'll continue right on here in just a minute or two. I'm gonna get restarted.